Hey folks, welcome to Atomic Game Theory, the show that uses conflict theory and math to study the tiny decisions that can make the big differences between winning and losing your favorite games. Every game player is always looking for the perfect strategy, the one move that you're just going to do over and over and over again, like in Street Fighter 2 when Chun-Li just lightning kicks you against the wall. Sadly, these don't show up very often, because if I can figure out what your perfect move is, then I can counter it, and now my strategy is the perfect one. But the alternative is making a move that isn't the best move for you. Why in the world would you make a move that isn't the best one? That's what being a rational game player is all about. Turns out, we have to consider the utility of being predictable. In 2002, 3 researchers decided to study penalty kicks in soccer. One of them even wrote a book you may have read. Penalty kicks are done at such a short range that the goalie and the kicker both explode into action at the same moment. And that means we have simultaneous turns and we can do some game theory. To simplify the game, say that the ball can be kicked in a binary way, to one side or the other. One of those sides is my natural side. A natural kick is more likely to score a goal. Since I'm right-handed, my stronger kicks will sail into the left side of the goal. When we make our moves, I get to decide to kick in a natural way or an opposite way. The goalie gets to decide which they think I'm more likely to do, and then leap in response. Now, if I kick in a natural way every time, the goalie has a huge advantage and is going to block lots of my shots, but it's even worse if I kick in an opposite way every time. I'm forced to develop a mixed strategy to maximize my success. A mixed strategy occurs in any game we play repeatedly, and it just means I need to find the ideal combination of choices to give me the best overall payoff. In soccer, I need to make sure the goalie stays confused, because my scoring probabilities go way up if I can keep us mismatched as often as possible. So the researchers did 2 things at once. They calculated exactly how often a penalty kick should be to the natural side, and then they studied players to find out how well their instincts compared. The calculation is a little tedious, but you can show that the ideal solution is that roughly 42% of all penalty kicks should be natural, while the remaining 58% should be opposite kicks. Which seems low, right? Kicking in your natural way is your best shot at scoring points. Opposite kicks are just worse. But it turns out that the trade-off is really with the goalie, who is totally ready to defend your best shot and might be a little less ready to defend your less likely shot. So then, not satisfied with theory, the researchers checked out what actual players were doing. And what they discovered is that player instincts run fairly true to the theoretical best case. From their observations, they saw 44.8% of penalty kicks taken were natural. This result holds up in later studies even after players learn about these results. Developing an instinctual understanding of probability in this case takes years of experience, which we are unlikely to get with a single board game, even if it's Scythe. So how are we going to figure out how to deal with mixed strategies in board games? Plenty of games highlight the idea of developing a mixed strategy, but few do it with such elegance as Citadels. Citadels is a game created back in 2000 by Bruno Faidutti. It was an immediate finalist for the coveted Spiel des Jahres, and developed a unique reputation as a very competitive bluffing game. In Citadels, you are competing to build the greatest buildings in the entire city. Each building costs an amount of money to build, and at the end of the game, you score points based on how expensive your buildings were. So while those higher costs are hard to build, they have a huge payoff. The game ends when someone builds their 8th building, and since you can only build one building a turn, the game can go only 8 turns if someone is focused on building just the smallest, cheapest things. Of course, there's a way to stop them. Each turn, players secretly draft a patron, which gives them an extra action. The patrons are revealed in numerical order, and as each are revealed, that player gets to take a turn. If you want to stop that punk with the cheap buildings, pick the Warlord, who allows you to destroy the buildings of other players for a cost. You also gain gold for all of the military installations you've built in the city. Good, right? Well, if you don't want the Warlord to hurt you, you could cry and plead, but you could also just pick the Bishop. They're immune to the Warlord and gain gold for any religious buildings in town. Or you could get aggressive, pick the Assassin, and at the very start of the round you can just take out the Warlord. When their turn comes around later, they don't get to do anything at all. Or the Thief, and try to steal their gold before their turn even begins. Now both of these target a patron and not a player, so if my enemies can figure out which role I'm likely to pick, I am doomed. Citadels quickly leads into a very elegant game where players carefully choose their roles to get the most benefit without being hurt. Which means that a lot of the game is based around the order in which you draft. As you might expect, the king in the last round gets first choice in the next. One roll card is removed face down from the round, and another is set aside and can only be chosen by the very last player. As the draft continues, players gain the ability to make educated guesses about what other people may have chosen, which leads to tons of fun. If I see that a player has drafted before me, has a ton of gold, and the thief is an option for me, then I might go ahead and take a chance at stealing all of that gold. So I'm going to pay very close attention to all the cards that I could potentially draft to figure out what they might have chosen. One common occurrence is seeing the assassin kill the king, which means that the drafting order doesn't change from round to round. A player with a strong drafting position may want to pick the assassin to keep the status quo. But the king is super helpful to me in my plan for success. It all depends on if my opponents are going to choose the assassin or not. The key to picking the king is developing a mixed strategy, which leads your opponents to pick the assassin less often. The later patrons like the king, merchant, bishop, and warlord each gain bonus gold for the kind of buildings they've taken. So it's always a good guess that a player with 3 green buildings will be looking for the merchant. In the same way, the architect and mage can give you more building cards for later rounds. Players with few cards will need to stock up or risk falling too far behind. When you boil down Citadels to its core, you can see that it's not much different from the problem of penalty kicks. There's always a dominant role for me to choose, and it's going to give me the most gold or it's going to somehow propel me to victory. But if I choose it again and again, someone is going to figure it out and they're going to find the right counter. Losing turns in Citadels is vicious. It's right up there with losing gold or losing some of your buildings, so it's important to not get picked on. But if you choose a non-dominant role too often, will you be able to eke out a victory? These are the same odds going through a goalie's mind when they decide how to react to a penalty kick. So if you enjoy mixed strategies, there are plenty of games that you can play in order to teach you how to be efficient. Roll for the Galaxy and its older sibling Race for the Galaxy have a series of roles that can be chosen from round to round. Unlike Citadels, players choose their roles simultaneously and can choose the same role. Any roles not chosen don't occur that round. Choosing a role means you get a benefit during that round, which is good for you, but the best strategy is really to be diverse and have something to do in every single phase of the round. Players want to make sure multiple roles are chosen, even if that means letting an opponent have the best role while you take one that is a little bit suboptimal. Vast is an incredible asymmetric competition by Leader Games, as is its upcoming sequel, which will probably not be named Too Vast, Too Furious. Players choose roles to play during the game, each with a separate objective. So while the knight wants to defeat the dragon, the goblins are hunting down the knight. The dragon just wants to wake up and escape the cave, and the cave is trying to trap everyone inside forever. So overall, the game is a race to complete an objective. But sometimes, when a player starts falling too far behind, they realize that the only way to get back into the game is with the help of other players. Is the fight between goblins and knight giving them both too much power? Maybe the knight has the dragon on the ropes and the goblins just can't seem to stop it. Or maybe the cave is just about to collapse the whole underground complex. This game is all about finding sudden allies amongst your bitter enemies. Studying mixed strategies is an important part of learning how to be efficient at games. When is it a good idea to pick a suboptimal role? Why would it be useful to keep my opponents guessing? And how close are my instincts to the actual mathematical best result? Now you're thinking like a game theorist. Thanks for watching. If you're a fan of learning more about the kind of analysis I love to do, check out atomicgametheory.com for blog posts, more videos, and tons of information about games and the major dilemmas of game theory. If you want to help support the work I do, head to patreon.com/atomicgametheory to get these videos a little bit more in advance and to help decide what kind of games and ideas we're going to talk about next. Alright, thanks for watching!